Good afternoon. Today is March 13th, 2025. This is a Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands of Wassahoba First Nation, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Please note in the meeting minutes that Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham is absent with regrets. Item number 3, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, Councillor Phil Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one, Bell Fiber Op.
Bell Fiber Op. I guess we could add that under old business, correct? Yeah, because that's been an ongoing, so we'll add that as 9.2.
Yep, 9.2?
9.2. 9.2, Bell Fiber Op. Councillor Mooney. Is there any more additions or deletions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. So moved by Councillor Daniel Muse, seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 5, if there's any declarations of conflict of interest, please notify me and then step away from the table. I'll make sure that your name is recorded in the meeting minutes. Item number 6, approval of minutes from February 13th, 2025, Committee of the Whole meeting. You all have that in your package. Is there any errors or omissions? If there's not, please, I'd entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Councillor Lauren. Yeah, this is going to be a long day if I'm going to start this. Moved by Councillor Lauren Cushion, seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse to approve the minutes as circulated. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 7, presentations. 7.1, We've Got Your Backpacks by Rhonda Boudreau and Reverend David Hockley. So what I'm going to ask you to do, there's a little red button on your thing, just press that. I'm going to turn your microphone on. You don't need to touch that again. Just make sure that you're speaking somewhat in the direction of the mic. You don't have to be right on top of it. So I'm going to open the floor to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, everyone, and we are grateful for the opportunity to come and share with you. We are here on behalf of the We've Got Your Backpacks program through Yarmouth Wesleyan Church. My name is David Hockley. I'm an assistant pastor at the church, and with me is Rhonda Boudreau, and she is our program director. And this program goes back to about 2022, thinking about some things at the church for how we were going to continue to have an impact in the community, what we could do, and we kind of settled on we knew it needed to have something to do with children, and it needed to have something to do with food. And those are two things on our hearts. And we ultimately heard about a program similar to this found in northern New Brunswick. And so in November of 2022, We've Got Your Backpacks came into existence, and here we are in our 3rd year and happy to be continuing along with it. You've got a lot of the details, of course, on the sheets that you were handed earlier, but we want to talk about a few things specifically. First is the relationship with the schools. We've got 7 schools that we partner with, and they are incredible. Straight up, this program would not work at all without them. They are so vigilant in ensuring that the backpacks are distributed to families that need this food on a week-in, week-out basis for the weekends. We have no part in that process. That's all of them. They are the ones who are on the front lines, the teachers and administrators, knowing the situations that these families are in. It would be far more complicated and less effective for us to decide ultimately who's getting these bags. And so we trust the schools with that process, and they've been absolutely wonderful to work with. We are funded in a handful of different ways, donations, of course. We've got 3 local partners who we are incredibly grateful for, and we're always working to make sure that we can hopefully build that partnership base. We have had a lot of funding through grants to this point. Susan Hazelton behind us has been going all over the place searching that out, and we are super thankful for her and what she does, and some fundraising as well. One of the fundraising highlights goes back to the summer at the National Acadian Day. With all the people at the airport, we raised $5,500 from selling hot dogs to a bunch of hungry people. And so that was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that, and a good opportunity to share about the program also. A couple of statistics that you don't necessarily have in front of you as it pertains to this school year. As of the 6th of March, we have delivered 1,454 backpacks. That's on a weekly basis on Thursdays. And on that weekly basis, 21 of the 75 bags that go out, to the best of our estimation, because we don't know exactly where all of them go, 21 of those go to families that come from the Yarmouth municipality. Also, over the Christmas and March breaks, we deliver gift cards for $50 and $25 respectively. And so far this year, about $40,000 spent on groceries overall. Rhonda.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit, as the program director, how this program works on a weekly basis. So every Wednesday, I place a grocery order through Superstore PC Express to be picked up the following Thursday by our team of volunteers. So it gives Superstore about 8 days to place the order and get it ready for us to be picked up. The team shows up at Superstore every Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. They bring the groceries to the church where it's unpacked and organized and packed into the backpacks. And once they are packed, our volunteers bring them to the schools, and the school is responsible for distributing to the students for them to bring home. I know at least 2 of the schools actually bring the bags to the homes themselves, so they have taken that upon themselves to deliver them to the homes themselves. And then the backpacks are then returned by the families to be picked up by our volunteers to be repacked again the next week, and that continues week after week throughout the school year. So we believe that the backpack program is making a big difference in many, in the families' lives, but also in the lives of our volunteers, for one. So firstly, I just want to talk a little bit about what it means to our volunteers. So every single Thursday before the bags are packed, we sit and have a little chit-chat. So Dave actually had come up with the idea that we just sit in a circle and just touch base with each other and see how everybody's doing before the bags are packed, see if there's anybody that we can pray for, just to kind of touch base before we do that. And I just want to talk about one of our volunteers, or a few of our volunteers, I guess, in particular. So one young man has been suffering with schizophrenia now for many years, and his life has been very, very difficult. And when asked what this program means to him, he said that it is, he said this is the day he looks forward to the most in his week. It gives him a sense of deep purpose and a reason to get up in the morning. It was really hard to hold back tears when he shared what this means to him. Another one of the volunteers just last week said that she feels like we're our own little family, and she's so thankful for the deep bond and support that is being created. We also have many senior volunteers from our church who find just such joy and purpose in showing up week after week and being part of this ministry. But we also have one volunteer, this is really special, whose family was a recipient of the backpacks for 2 years, and now she's thrilled to be able to give back in this way by helping volunteer with us. As far as the schools, they're also very much impacted, and we've heard so much positive feedback from them. And I'd just like to take a few moments to share some of their thoughts that they have written to us. So the principal of one of the schools wrote this. She said, "We've Got Your Backpacks has been very impactful for our families. Every Thursday, they receive a backpack filled with nutritious food to bring home. Each child comes to pick up their bag at the office. The first ones test out a few to see which one is heaviest, and that's the one they choose." And that's so cute because they're all exactly the same. They're so thankful and excited to bring home these treats. As they walk away with their backpacks, their smiles light up the room. Our school community is thankful to those who give generously to make this program happen. Always remember that what seems like a little bit often makes a huge difference. And this note was received from another school. "I wanted to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your incredible support in addressing food insecurities within our school community. Your generous contributions have ensured that our students and their families have access to food, providing a little food security for them. Your dedication and compassion have made an impact, providing relief and strengthening community bonds. Thank you for your unwavering support. We truly do appreciate it." Another one of our contacts said that when she delivered the bags, the mom said that it was the child's absolute favorite day of the week, and another one said it was the only consistency in their week. So that means a lot to us. And as for the families, first and foremost, our goal is to provide them with nutritious food that we can help them in this tangible and meaningful way every single week. We also hope that maybe this little bit of help allows to free up some money that they can, pay a bill or do whatever, something else they need to do that week. But above all, we hope that they know that they feel through this program that they are seen and deeply cared for, and that they matter. We pray for these families every single morning that these bags are packed, and in the past few months, we've included little prayer cards that they can fill out and send back to us. And I'd just like to share one of those with you, because this one really stood out to us. This one family wrote, "Please pray for medicine we can afford, meat for our freezer, and heat for our home." And that is why we do what we do. So having said that, we would just like to take a couple minutes and show you the contents of the backpacks, just so you can get a visual of what we put in there. And this is an example of what is in there weekly. So we always have a cereal or oatmeal. We always have a bread product, so English muffins. Sometimes it's going to be an actual, like, in-store baked bread or bagels. We put 3 different snacks. So just as an example, we have Bear Paws here. We've got a bunch of, fruit cups. Sometimes this might be pudding, it might be applesauce, something else. Cheese and crackers, popcorn. I was also told by a school administrator that when popcorn is in the bag, she knows the next day she's going to be popping popcorn for the entire recess because they bring it to school for her to pop. We always put 3 produce items. So as an example, we have carrots, bananas, and I believe there's apples. They would each get a half a bag of apples in there, which is quite a bit. We also always have a pasta item and something to go with it. So we've got spaghetti sauce here and a couple cans of tuna. And yeah, that is just, again, we rotate weekly so that there's variety, so they're not always getting the same thing. But that's just an example of what they get every single Thursday. And I believe that ends my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor Phil Mooney.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Rhonda. And I know this is the second opportunity that myself and Councillor Muse will have to support the program, because I know we both voted for it at the 100 Men That Give, and I think that was a $12,000 day for you.
Thank you.
And I said, man, oh man, that's a $12,000 day. That's really, really, really good. And then, Dave, I looked at this and I said, that's like not even 1/10 of the budget, right? So, and Dan, you said that I talk a lot. What about my cousin? She can talk. She can talk, man. But
A lot.
to get the conversation going, Mr. Chair, and I had to talk to the CAO to move this forward. I know that we all around the table support the project, but I'll make a motion that the municipality district of Yarmouth support the WGYB initiative and work through Mark Blinn, our community and economic development officer, and we can put this for the next fiscal year, which starts in April. So that's the way it would go. And Mark, there's a couple of questions that the CAO had where we would put it in the budget, but if you work with Mark and the CAO, we can find a slot in there. And then you didn't mention a number yet, and maybe hopefully Councillor Muse can kind of get a ballpark figure of what you're looking for, as long as it's not $163,000.
Thank you.
So before I ask for a seconder, that was a recommendation to regular council. Okay, motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse. Councillor Lauren Cushing.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned about one person was always receiving one family or something, now they're giving back, right? That's what it's all about. I remember back in my day when I was in the minor hockey system, I always went out and found sponsors for at least a dozen kids that couldn't. And then there's one year, this lady come up and I said, "Oh, I'm ready to sponsor your child again." She said, "No, things have changed in my life. I want to sponsor somebody myself."
Awesome.
So that's what, it's a good feeling, and it's a well worth project. One of my questions was, is the amount of food that they get, hopefully it lasts a week?
Well, or even over the weekend, because there's a gap there, you know, in the schools sometimes, sorry, but yeah, there's breakfast programs in the schools.
Yes.
And so our intention, I believe, when it started, was to help fill that gap. I mean, this probably would last possibly longer than the weekend, right? And then snacks for the kids to bring to school. So, yeah, we're not sure how long it's,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, but
But it's a good supply.
it's a good, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and a good variety,
Yeah, and I gotta say, there's lots, there's a number of programs out there, like you said, the breakfast program, and you guys are doing this, and the Act of Kindness
Right.
is helping out with food, and it's, in times of need, and there's a lot of families in time of need right now,
absolutely,
right now.
right now.
With the high power bills and the high taxes, and, so, yeah, very good, thank you very much. You certainly got my support.
Thank you so much, thank you.
Councillor Muse.
All I can say is, wow, over 2,000 backpacks in 23, 24, that's amazing. Do you have a rough idea where you are in 24, 25 with 3 months remaining?
How many backpacks so far?
Yeah,
1,454 sent out.
so we're well on our way to 2,000 again. If I was to get a backpack, I want to be first in line because I would want the heaviest one because I think that they're not all the same, Rhonda. And the reason being is because the bananas and those are probably not all the same weight.
That's true.
So those apples could be bigger or smaller, so I want to make sure that if I'm getting a couple more ounces than the next person, I want to be first. I don't blame,
We'll make sure.
I don't blame that person.
The children are right.
That they are right. So, what happens, the gap in the summer of 2 months? Do you guys have something that you do in place of this where there's no schools?
It's dependent on the funding that we have in place. So for the first summer, we had nothing. Last summer, we had a significant grant that came from the province to the tune of $100,000, which was to be used over the year, 60,000 of which went toward gift cards in the summer for these families. Sorry, 40, thank you. 40,000 went to families. She should be sitting here, actually. And that gave each family about $650 in gift cards for the summer. It's just a matter at this point of what sort of funding do we have or not, so. yeah.
Okay,
And those gift cards were to Superstore.
okay.
Yeah.
And just a comment we got about that was one of the administrators reached out to me and she said when they handed them out, one of the moms looked at it and she started to cry and she was saying, no, this isn't real. Like they just couldn't believe
Yeah.
that this was
Yeah.
being given to them.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So, as Councillor Mooney mentioned, what sort of price tag are we looking at in support for us from council?
Honestly, wasn't prepared for that question.
No.
We are grateful for whatever council would deem appropriate,
Okay.
honestly, and yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Great presentation, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jim Baxter.
First, thank you for coming and sharing this with us. It sounds like an amazing program. The fact that you're serving estimated 300 people per week, that's something significant. Sounds like a great program, and I was shocked at how much you kept pulling out of that backpack. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no more microphones flashing. One thing I did want to mention, I'm happy to see that you're putting fruits and vegetables in those backpacks, because we always know what goes in the body is what makes the body more healthy. And seeing apples, bananas, fruit cups, cheese, stuff like that, I'm really happy to see that. And thank you very much for everything that you do for the communities. There is a motion on the floor. I haven't called the question yet. Typically, we don't make motions during presentations, but it's Chair's prerogative to waive that consideration, and I think you're going to see support of the motion that's going on. So what's going to happen with the motion is it goes to a regular council, and we'll discuss it there, and then we'll get it moved on into budget to, and we'll certainly look favorably towards that, which we always seem to do for all different community organizations, because obviously, you know, there's not only you that does this for the communities, there's a bunch of others out there, and unfortunately, the need is out there, but I'm glad to see many volunteers like yourselves step up and help those in need in our community. So on behalf of the residents of the municipality, council, and staff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, there is a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
We might just leave it here.
Yeah. Our packing team would get this done right quick. That one. Sorry, but. I'm just, see, the packing team would do.
Well,
much
think of it
better
this way. Without good
us.
news from him, it'd be harder to pay the bills.
Just to be able to-
So,
Thank you very much, folks. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
thank you very much, David and Rhonda. Appreciate it. All right. Next presentation on item 7.2, the Yarmouth 2024 roll. We have with us from PVSC, Paul Beasley. Good day, Paul, and Matthew Chapeau. From the Property Valuation Service. I do believe that you have a presentation. I do have it on paper. I'm not sure if it's going to be going, yeah, it is actually, I see it. So I'm going to turn on your microphone, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Pleasure to be here again this year, and councilors, Madam CAO, once again, thank you for having us here. There's a few familiar faces from last year and from NSFM conference, and a recycled familiar face over here from a few years ago, for sure. Your Worship, yes, I'm Paul Beasley from PVSC. I'm the Municipal Account Manager, and I've been with PVSC for 9 years, for those of you that don't know me. I feel that, you know, I have a sort of a unique role that I play as Municipal Account Manager in my interactions with municipal councils, in that some of you know and some of you don't know that I was an elected municipal official for 12 years. And as Mr. Mooney would know, I was the mayor of the town of Windsor for 8 years. So I think that allows me to put my, you know, sort of sit in your chair or know what you go through and on a daily basis. And I really enjoy interacting with councils. Although possibly in the hot seat here today, I don't know, but, and I'll let Matt Chaput sort of introduce himself.
All right, thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone, nice to meet you. Matthew Chaput. I've been with PVSC as a commercial assessor for about 8 years now. I've worked closely with Paul over the years, but the last few years been working mostly doing assessments of commercial properties, apartment buildings and office buildings and stuff like that, so, yeah.
All right. So, Your Worship, I brought the full slide deck for the benefit of those that may not have seen our presentation before. For those of you that have, it'll be a bit of a refresher, but I'm going to go through it very quickly because I know time is limited and you have a busy agenda. So I'll get started. So this diagram, the schematic, you may be familiar with this because we put it on every one of our assessment notices this year, just so property owners get the high-level view of how property assessment and the taxation, municipal taxation works in the province. We do get quite a few questions about it and the differentiation between the roles that the municipality plays and what PVSC plays. So about PVSC, we were created back early 2000s, and our mandate is, as per the provincial legislation, the Nova Scotia Assessment Act, we're municipally funded by all 49 municipalities. We're governed by a board of directors. Joe Feeney, the deputy mayor of Mahone Bay, is still our chair. And typically the board is made up of about 1/3, well, it has about 12 members, about 1/3 that have municipal experience, such as municipal staff or previous municipal staffers. Also by elected municipal officials, such as yourself, make up about 1/3 of the board, and the other third's made up of sort of independent private sector professionals. And we have about 130 employees that live and work in 62 communities around the province. What we do, we deliver the assessment roll, 650,000 properties across the Nova Scotia. I won't dwell on it too much. What we don't do is we don't set the tax rate, we don't collect the taxes, we don't determine the boundaries for land. Land registry does that, but anything to do with taxes, tax rate, tax policy, that's yours in the province within your mandate of the Municipal Government Act, and of course the province who has their legislation as well. So in short, the Assessment Act requires that we assess properties at market value. Now, so the confusing part is our market value, what we set, when we set the market values, it's 1 year back. So it's a retrospective market value based on market data, actual market data. We don't speculate, we don't estimate, we don't do any of that type of stuff. We just look at the data as we get it. So the 2025 assessment roll that you just received, 2 months ago, it would be based on sales data through the calendar year 2023 for a market value date of January 1st, 2024. So we're 1 year back on our market value date. We use mass appraisal practices. Each year, we do it annually on all 650,000 properties across the province. Mass appraisal, in a nutshell, the process of valuing a group of properties as of a given date using common data, standardized methods, and statistical testing. That given date is what we call the base date, which is that January 1st, 1 year before. There's a number of roll quality standards that we adhere to. They are internationally held roll standards through the International Association of Assessment Officers, and that's a recognized group or body worldwide. Various quality measures, statistical analysis, that type of thing. I'm not going to get into that because you get way down into the weeds, and quite frankly, that's our data scientists and our data team make sure that we adhere to the quality standards. So data sources, pretty much any source that we can use, we do use. Property owners is probably by far the greatest source of information that we have. We're talking to property owners all the time. We're inspecting properties all the time. We're talking to commercial property owners, as Matt's talking to them all the time as well. The land registry sends us information on properties. We look at the real estate websites. We compare, we look at the data on the websites. Building permits from the municipality are very important. And income and expense information for those properties that are based on an income approach to value. Our aerial pictometry, we use that quite a bit. It's digital, high-resolution digital photography. We probably fly over this area and the Yarmouth area, the more densely populated areas, every 2 years. So that allows us to compare our data with what data we can see in the aerial pictometry. And we can look at things, as far as measuring the size of decks, determine the size of a house, has the addition been completed, that type of thing. As long as, you know, if the flyover is the right time, you know, we can see that data fairly soon after a property's built. Other times, if we don't fly over till a year later, you know, we rely on the data that we have, for sure. And we do a lot of field inspections. 3 approaches to value: sales comparison approach. We look at the sales. We look at the actual sales, not prospective, or not, we're not, like I say, not speculating or looking at listings. We're looking at what sales actually occurred. Typically for residential properties, we use sales comparison. The income approach, for those properties that derive their value through the income they can generate or the cash flow they can generate, such as hotels, motels, such as apartment buildings, such as office, you know, office buildings and retail shopping malls like strip malls and that, the income approach. The cost approach is usually used for more unique properties where there aren't a lot of sales, a lot of industrial type properties, box stores, those types of things. We use the cost approach. We get a lot of common questions about sales. I've put this in here just so that you'll have them, probably questions that you have as well. So I'm going to pretty much skip over it, but the first question relates to, well, I guess, is every sale included in a market analysis? I'll stick to that part and say that yes and no. We look at all the sales and we qualify the sales to determine whether it's a market sale or not, willing buyer, willing seller, that type of situation where it's arm's length, and we will use that in our analysis. So we don't use all the sales, we use those sales that we qualify as market sales. So in an area that has 500 sales, maybe 400 of them are qualified good market sales that we can say that provides us good data to tell us sort of the movement of the market or which way the market is going. So I'll let you look at those answers to your, you know, at your leisure. The capped assessment program, definitely get the most questions about the capped assessment program. Essentially, it places the cap on how much a property can increase in any particular year. The cap is based on the Consumer Price Index for Nova Scotia. The provincial government provides us with the cap percentage every year based on that CPI. Which comes from Stats Canada. So last year, or for the 2025 roll, that CPI rate was 1.5%. For the 2024 roll, the year before, it was 3.2%. For the year before that, I think it was 7.7% in the height of the pandemic. So you can see that cap goes up and down, that CPI amount. Typically, it was around 1.5%. The years leading up to the pandemic. So that cap or that inflation rate's pretty much back to where it was before. The other part about the cap, it only speaks to increases in value. It doesn't speak to decreases in value. So we're constantly doing market value assessment, but we're also doing cap value assessment. So if the market value falls and goes below the cap, then the property owner gets the benefit of the lower of the two amounts. So as long as if the market value is above the cap, then the cap takes precedent and the property is taxed based on the cap amount. It gets a little confusing at times, but hopefully, you know, through many years trying to explain the cap, hopefully it's, the word is getting out as to how it actually works. So if you think of your assessment roll, we have to go back to 2023. What was happening in 2023? Because that's where we got our market data from, 2023 or before. So at the time, there were clouds over the home building, or the clouds over home building were beginning to clear. The housing crunch, you know, some of the headlines, it must be treated as once in generational change. So we're coming out of the pandemic at the time. Office vacancies are up. You know, the pandemic, a lot of people work from home now. So office vacancies are up, home prices were climbing, as listings shrunk. So home values were still rising at the time in 2023. So your assessment roll here in Yarmouth, a couple of numbers. Your total 2025 assessment roll is $1.44 billion. Let's go back a few years. In 2020, your total assessment roll was $865 million. So from 865 over that course of 6 years from 2020 to the 2025 assessment roll was a 65% increase over 6 years. The pandemic took it up quite considerably. For instance, the market value increase on residential in 2024, for the 2024 roll just last year was 27.9%. That was the market value increase for the district. So this year it's 6.7%. So that's on residential. So the residential property assessment you see there of 1.33 billion, that's a 6.7% increase year over year. The residential assessed value with cap, that's after the cap is calculated into the formula, 1.01 billion. So the difference between market value and cap is at 300 and some odd million. Those, somebody with a calculator can figure that out for sure, but 300 and some million. That represents a 5.2 or more or less a 5.2% lift in your taxable residential this year, 5.2%. So that's the numbers that are a big part of your budget. To a lesser degree, commercial, for the district, commercial, it was down a little bit as far as overall commercial, but your taxable commercial was up just a little, more or less flat, but just a little bit this year. So your assessment roll, last year we did, for the 2025 roll, we looked at 251 permits that came from the municipality, 383 qualified sales transactions that we analyzed and reviewed for market value analysis in the year, and we had 69 appeals in 2025, or for 2025. That's the current appeal number. Last year, there were 162 appeals. This year, there's 69 appeals. So appeals are down significantly across the province, but most particularly here, because that's a major decrease in appeals. However, if you go back before the pandemic and the larger increases in assessed value, we were sitting at 58 to 71. So we're back kind of in the same, the regular appeal sort of mode right now, I would say. So the other interesting note is in that property transactions number. So I just want to break it down a little bit into residential sales. So residential sales, out of that 383 property transactions, 273 of them were residential sales with actual dwellings on them. So 273. Last year, as we were coming out of the pandemic, 333 sales compared to 273 this year. And the year, sort of the height of the pandemic, 352 sales in the district. Prior to that, you were probably more around the 200 sales transactions a year. So it went from 200, 352, 333, now we're back down to 273. So you sort of see us coming off the pandemic numbers a little bit. So the appeal process is starts the day that we send the notices out, which was January 13th of 2025. You have 31 days to appeal. That appeal period is over. So now we are at the stage where we are looking and we're starting to review those appeals and starting to reach out to property owners to talk to them about their appeal and make a decision on them. There's 3 levels of appeal. The initial assessor review, that's where we're at right now. We're looking at them all. There were some 9,000 appeals across the province this year, so we're starting to look at those. If an appellant, well, we have 3 options. We can either confirm the assessed value of the property, i.e. we feel that the value is fair and right. We can make amendments for whatever reason. whether it be, you know, they don't have a deck anymore, or they tore down the garage, or whatever, we can take a look at that type of stuff. Or, in a number of cases, the appellant will withdraw their appeal after they talk to us, or, you know, upon reflection of the assessment or whatever. So a lot of times we do. Usually it's about a third, a third, and a third. So about a third of them get confirmed, about a third of them get withdrawn, and about a third of them get amended. In the case of the district, we had 45 amended last year out of 152, so that was 30%. The year before that, 22% of the district's appeals were amended. The rest were either confirmed or withdrawn. The other step, if you don't agree, you know, with our decision on the appeal, you can take it to the next level, which is Nova Scotia Assessment Appeal Tribunal, or NSAT. That's an independent assessment court or tribunal. Typically, it would be, and they're done virtually now in most cases, although you can ask for an in-person hearing. But typically, it's an independent chair, typically a solicitor or retired solicitor, someone like that, you know, a mediation professional, something along that lines. So it'll be the property owner will state their reasons, and we will state our reasons for the value, and the independent chair will make the decision. If they don't agree with that decision by the independent chair, then it can be appealed to the Utility and Review Board, which is a much more formal process. So here's our contact information. Any property owners, refer them to us if they have questions on assessment. Sometimes they're asking about taxes, but if they're talking about assessment, refer them to us. And we have people, you know, we have our service center and our call center, you know, all business, you know, during business hours, and we have assessors standing by as well to answer any questions about their particular property. Thank you. And if you have any questions, appreciate hearing them.
Well, I hate to warn you, we gave council a little bit extra time during this presentation, so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of
okay.
questions or not, but I'm
That's
going to
why I
open up
brought-
the floor, and there's that
That's
old
why I
saying,
brought Mr. Chaput here with me, in case you have a lot of questions.
there's that old saying there, never give a politician the opportunity to get for a microphone because they could talk for hours, so we'll
I've
see.
been there, Your Worship.
We'll see what happens, especially them older politicians.
I know where some questions may come from. That's what I
Councilor
heard.
Lauren Cushion, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I might have missed your explanation on or misunderstood your explanation on who sets the tax rate?
You set the tax rate. Council sets the tax rate.
Yeah, but however, our assessment of the properties are up, right?
Yep.
So we set our tax rate based on the higher assessment of the properties.
Yes, you know,
So-
I think you have a budget, of course.
Yeah.
And your budget is
Yeah.
determined by the assessment values times the tax rate. So if assessments go up, your tax rate, that's up to you to determine what your tax rate's going to be with it.
Yep.
So,
The second question, you say that you had so many, excuse me, so many people appeal, I think it was 24 or something in 1 year there. Are the same properties always appealing or appeal?
I'll let Matt answer that question, and, you know, I think Matt deals with appeals quite regularly.
Yeah, no, we do get quite a few, like, repeat appellants. All of those cases, you know, you know, once we've kind of been through all the arguments and all the issues with the property, you know, if they're constantly appealing year over year, then those ones tend to get confirmed, and if they go to NSAT, you know, they usually get confirmed again, because, I mean, the arguments don't really change, but, you know, that wouldn't really be the bulk of the appeals. You know, with the values going up so much over the last few years, that's why we saw appeal numbers, you know, creep up a bit, but now that, we're not seeing as dramatic increases in the assessed value, so that's why you're starting to see the appeal numbers go down a bit.
And possibly mention the role that agents have.
Yes, so usually with commercial properties, you'll have property tax agents that'll represent the property owner on their behalf. And so those typically end up being repeat appellants every year. And so we do have consistent communication with those agents, so we're constantly, kind of reviewing the properties with them, so we're well aware of all the issues. And so, yeah, I would say on commercial properties, we're dealing mostly with kind of, specialized property tax agents that are working on the owner's behalf.
Counselor Phil Mooney.
Yeah, thank you, Paul and Matt. On the appeal process, Paul, do you know the percentage that actually get to the utility review board and what it is, the difference between commercial and residential? It would be more commercial would get,
Well, yes and no. Typically, you would think that it would be a large commercial entity that would typically go to the utility and review board, and that is true. I don't have the numbers specifically. It's a very, very small number that goes to the utility and review board. It's like 0.01% of, or 0.01 of 1% or something, like 1,000th of a percent or something. But it's about, I looked at the numbers a few years back. It was like about 1 in 1,500 properties go to the tribunal or something, but to go to the utility and review board, maybe one of those might, typically, but it's a very small number. But several that you'll see going to the utility and review board are the appellant feels that the principle of, I don't know, maybe they're just arguing assessment itself as to, and maybe it's not fair, or maybe it's not this, or whatever, but, always relates to value. But there are several that individuals actually take it there, and they represent themselves, and they have the right to do that. It just, utility and review board usually takes a little more due diligence and preparation to get in front and state your case.
what about if somebody files an appeal? What's the story on, on the PVSC side, when it comes to the assessors, do they get a different set of eyes coming in from somewhere else to look at the appeal?
Well, I'll let Matt answer that one too.
Yeah,
'cause
it can be. We would have assessors in, various areas across the province that would, kind of focus on certain areas or certain property types, but usually when it comes to assigning like the actual appeals, you're usually assigning whether it's a residential or commercial properties, you're assigning it to an assessor that's familiar with that area or with that type of property.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and you said the percentage was so small, Paul, but when it got to the utility review board, what would the first two processes, what would the timeline be?
Well, they can take some time. The first process, we attempt to have the vast majority of them done by end of June, say. Now, they're fairly big numbers and as far as getting through them all, but typically, those that are not agent-driven, we typically have them done, into the fall sort of thing. However, the agent-driven ones take a little bit longer, because the agents take on a lot of appeals. So it's almost a bit of a bottleneck as far as how quickly they can get the grounds for the appeals to us. So, and then we deal with them as quickly as we can, in that regard. And there are a few that go on into the next year, especially if they're particularly complex. Matt, did you want to add anything on
Yeah,
that?
and I guess on the operations side, I would say that, the smaller municipalities or the municipalities that might have an earlier billing period for property tax, we try to get those done, sooner, right? So we kind of have a priority of municipal units, depending on, when the billings happen. So we try to get the earlier tax billings done. We get those appeals done first, and then smaller municipalities as well. We try to focus on getting those ones. Or if, depending on the year, if there's a municipality that might have like a large number of appeals typical than normal, or like a large amount of value that's under appeal, so we'll try to adjust that. So that, there's not potential risk for a big change in the assessed values.
Good, thank you. You guys working again later tonight or no? Are you guys done for the day? I know town council has a meeting tonight. You're not going you're not going? Paul?
We work 24/7.
I mean, you're not going, I said, there's a town council meeting tonight. You don't have to make a presentation to town tonight, do you? No.
No, this is our only stop along the way. No, we've got, I was wondering, I know him well, so you, so where was that coming from?
I can hold my own too, and I got a couple notes jotted down, but I see Councillor Trevor Perry. You have the floor.
Hello. Is there an avenue if something happens in a community where maybe there's quite a few houses that may feel like they need to appeal? Is there an avenue for like a mass appeal like that for several places in a community if something happens?
I'm not aware of any avenue for a mass appeal. We do have direct lines communications with CAO staff and that, so if there's areas that are of concern or whatever, certainly advise your CAO and we can take a look at them. Now, I say that, and there are areas that certain special circumstances would warrant that, such as the wildfires, 2 summers ago, in that we did look at all those, not under appeal, but separately as a sort of a special situation. We've had
issue in Falmouth there a few years ago, remember with the house?
There was issues of a sinkhole in Falmouth that some of you will remember, just outside of Windsor several years ago. There were the floods in Windsor. Those types of things, we're working directly with staff to take a look at those, and certainly we're mindful of those.
Okay, thank you.
Trevor, if you're done, there you go. Councillor Daniel Muse.
Thanks, guys, for coming down and presenting to us. Question on the assessment. So a new resident comes to Nova Scotia, buys a home at an inflated price over these last couple of years. Does that affect the assessment of their neighbors? For example, somebody comes in and buys a property that's your previous owners paid $350. Now the new residents are coming in and paying $500,000.
And yeah, we saw it through the pandemic, of course, like
absolutely.
sight unseen.
Yes,
Some of
absolutely.
those are
So
that type of stuff.
that's an inflated price through the pandemic. Is that going to affect the surrounding neighbors?
Well, I'll go back to the mass appraisal slide. It has the potential to affect it in that we use mass appraisal principles, which require that we have sufficient sales evidence in order to validate or verify what market changes or what market value should be there. So no one sale will set the assessment, but it could be part of the larger analysis of properties in the area. So let's say there's 20 in the area. We look at those sales. How are those market values moving? We analyze them, we review them, we make sure they're good, qualified market sales, and then we look at means and medians and statistical testing, and that tells us, looking back at real data, which way the market moves so that we can set that assessment for that role.
I guess I'll add further, like, if, in terms of statistical analysis, like if it's an outlier sale, then it wouldn't be given as much weight as, kind of the more common sales that are happening.
Yes, so the premise of your question is, yes, there were sales that were high, and our assessors would take a look at those, and the other question on those commonly asked questions is, do you set the assessment at the sale price? The answer is no. It's a good reflection of what the sale price or what the market value might be, but it's not necessarily the market value. They may You know, there may be any number of reasons, like a lot of properties were like, say, sight unseen, or there were bidding wars on these properties. So if you've got a bunch of people, 50 people bidding on a property, is that market value? Not necessarily. That's undue influence. It's not necessarily standard market value. If you have to find a home, that could be undue influence, not a willing buyer, willing seller. So we look at that type of stuff. So it comes back to means and medians. There are outliers, those types of things.
So I don't envy your job, that's for sure. But, so that could really, you know, that could hurt the fixed income, older people that own houses. If someone comes in, there's 2 or 3 houses sold, now their prices go up by $20,000, like their assessment, that could hurt a fixed income. But I don't envy your job. I know there's a lot of thought given into it, and thank you.
Well-
You answered my question, it was good.
Well, I don't envy your job either, because I know what it is, and you get the same questions we get. And
Yeah.
you get the same people coming up to you in the store and saying, but that, I'll remind you of the cap. For those people that may be hurt by the large increases, the cap is there for a reason. Whether you agree with the cap or don't agree with the cap, through the pandemic period, those properties increased by CPI. Those that people have been living in them for a long period of time, and were eligible, those were the ones that received the CPI. The new people coming in that bought their house, those are the ones that come out of the cap, and then their values go up, so.
Counselor Jim Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you guys for coming and presenting to us. My question is kind of along the lines of Councillor Muse's question. If an appeal is made, does the assessor ever go out to do an actual house visit to take a look at the unit?
Yeah, so if there's issues with, the physical data on the property that might be off, like if we have the wrong, if the property owner is claiming that, the size of the building is incorrect and stuff like that, or if there's physical problems with the building, then we'll go out to inspect to verify or to confirm, yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts are along the lines of fixed income, older homes in a rural setting, and they don't always appreciate and value if the person doesn't have the means to keep the house up to a certain state, so.
No, we certainly would go out to verify that.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and one of them pertains to your slides that you supplied here. The first one is what we do. You administer the capped assessment program, and I have to ask, seasonal tourist business designation program, what exactly is that?
The seasonal business, tourist businesses for those properties that operate part-time through the tourism season. And it gives them the benefit, like they don't operate commercially through the entire year. So they may have a seasonal business that they've set up. So it gives them the benefit of a 25%, I think it's 25% tax break on the commercial rate of that commercial portion for when it's closed down for the year. But it only includes roofed accommodations, restaurants, and campgrounds.
Okay.
It won't include things like water parks or other types of recreational parks or things such as that. A park may have a component that is a restaurant, and they would be eligible for that component, but not for the whole property. But roofed accommodations, restaurants, and campsites.
Thank you very much for that, because actually I didn't know the answer to that question. I was curious about that because all we hear is the PAC's supposed to administer the cap. That's the first time I actually seen, after all my years sitting here behind, whether it's a council table or up here, that the tourist business designation program, that's the first time I heard of it.
You have to apply for that every year. I think it's September the 1st.
Okay.
for
I
September
I
1st.
did not know that. And one thing that I also noticed, and it's been a problem that our rural municipality has, is the difference between residential and commercial assessments. That's skewed a little bit a lot, or I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot more towards residential. It's only because of the type of municipality that we have been, which is basically more rural. And we've been trying, as long as I've been sitting here for 16-plus years, trying to improve that with different developments in our business park and trying to open it up through our MPS and LUBs to allow different businesses around the municipality to try to improve that, and not only that, to help people work at home. Something that I find, and I'm going to ask you this question, and I don't know if you're the right people to ask this question. Assessments and national building codes. As we all know, the national building codes are changing once again for new home builds. And the only reason why I ask this is because my son is currently building a house. And he's got a permit, and he's about 3/4 of the way through now. And your staff has been great when they've been down, because they've been down visiting and stuff like that. But under when he got his development permit, there was this building code, but they're being changed. So does that mean that the new national building codes that are applied now applies to the homes that are built before?
I don't have the expertise to answer that question.
And I did mention that I was unsure if you could answer this question or
And
not.
Matt deals a little bit more with the commercial side and maybe some of the aspects of that, but the building code's not something that we deal with whatsoever, other than typically if you're making your building code more stringent or tightening it, it may impact on the cost of building, and which may impact on our costing type approaches and some of our costing data, which we typically would see in a Marshall and Swift type of costing, sort of that, that's where we get some of our costing information, and they do that type of stuff. And so building codes probably work into their data, but not so much into ours, would you say?
And there would be a bit of a lag for any, if there were any impacts on the value, like it would probably take a couple of years for that to come through on our end in our analysis, right?
Yeah, see what I'm getting at, like, say it's a national building code change and it added another $10,000 because you needed a different type of heat exchange system or something new that would make the home more energy efficient. However, it makes it more expensive to build. So you wouldn't see that right away. You'd see that down the road.
Yes.
Yeah, but we are regularly updating our costing data, like annually, we're updating that to make sure it's at, for Nova Scotia's costing and market values for construction.
Yeah, I see you're a little uncomfortable and really
It's not
unsure where to
mine.
go, but it wasn't
Yeah.
a gotcha question. It was just
No.
a question out of curiosity, because I happen to be going through a building phase right now, and then I just happened to read, well, the National Building Code is changing this, and this.
Yeah.
Well, if I had to do this, and this, would add a few $1,000s to the build of the home. And then, of course, we all know that the cost of homes is going up, not only through the sale, but also building them. And one of the big concerns that I've been hearing and also recently noticing, the building codes, when they change them, usually that doesn't mean the price of building the house goes down. It actually it seems to go up.
It could be reflected in the sale price, like you say. And
Yeah.
that's what we
So
really look
that's
at.
how that goes as well. I see Councillor Lauren Cushion, you have the floor.
Yeah, this is my second question, Mr. Warden, but the cap that's in place now, I know our prior council, some of the councilors were concerned that it should be eliminated and make it all fair for everybody. And have you guys run across that argument?
We hear that pretty much. No, we don't take a position on it one way or another. Like, we administer the legislation on behalf of the province. But I will refer you to NSFM, who has done quite a bit of analysis of the cap and
That's right.
and the impact of the cap. And all I can say is that you have one budget. You've got to cover your expenses, and if market value is up here and you had that assessment value, then that might give you a little more wiggle room on your setting your tax rates. but you're dealing with the cap value, which is down here, which gives you less wiggle room. And then you have to look at, is it fair to my neighbor? And that's what you have to decide, and the legislators have to decide. Somebody new has a house,
So,
and is twice, you know, the amount is twice as much as what the neighbor is that's lived there for a long time.
in, a hypothetical question here, if assessments go down, I don't think they ever will, but if they go down, have you ever seen that, or?
Well, we've seen it in overall commercial this year for the district. It only went down 1%. But yes, when the market tells us it goes down, which across the province, commercial was pretty flat. Some municipalities down, some up a little bit. But most of the presentations I did was down a little bit. And that's on the commercial side. As you could appreciate, we had some pretty good increases through the pandemic. Now, that costing, some of those costing data are cost to construct, and some of that market value is starting to move, you
The
know,
other way.
flatten out a little bit. So they're not increasing, they're not really decreasing, but it's going, you know, it's just right there. But if the data tells us that market values are going down, we will assess it downward. Now, we're a year back, so it takes a couple of years to flow through. In this case, for the pandemic, 2023 was a significant increase, 2024 was a significant, well, the pandemic was in 2021, 22, but that's how it moves. Like, it takes a little while to turn the ship, but we do it by looking back, and we make those movements upwards or downwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember getting lots of arguments through different NSFM conferences that I hold about the cap, and there always seems to be quite divided about that, and some heated discussions. I for one, am a cap proponent for just what we went through the pandemic. And my mind hasn't changed on that, and I know a lot of people tried to change my mind. I'm quite open-minded about it, but to this date, I think that's the best system we have right now, and I know a lot of people may disagree with me. I have some colleagues just in the next municipality that disagree.
The one thing I do say is if someone's benefiting from the cap, someone is not benefiting from the cap.
That is absolutely correct.
So you look at the
You can look at it both ways, and I try to balance that argument every time I get in that discussion.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from staff? I see no more from council.
The other thing, Your Worship, that you had mentioned was commercial versus residential, so I just want to leave you with one number. You have about 10,000 properties in the district. 9,500 of them are residential resource, so like vacant land and residential, which are at the residential rate, except for those that are exempt, and about 500, less than 500 are commercial.
Yep.
So you have a high percentage of residential in the district.
Yeah,
And
we've
resource as well, a lot of
known that
woodlands.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a lot of open land
Yeah.
that could be used. So anyway, I see no more. I guess you got off pretty good, and we actually designated an hour because you never know how these are going to go sometimes. I guess you got off pretty leniently today.
Well, there's lots of good questions, and once again, really appreciate having the opportunity to come down, and look forward to next year as well. Good luck.
Absolutely.
Good luck
Thank you
with
very
the
much
council.
for coming, Paul and Matthew.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Probably. Are you going? Maybe not.
He's still smiling, so I guess that's a good sign. Either that or gritting his teeth under his breath.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on. Correspondence, there's no correspondence for action or information. Moving on to item number 9, new business, 9.1, the draft 2025-2028 accessibility plan. We have with us Darlene. Is Livinus going to be joining you? Nope. Okay, I'm going to turn on your mic, and the floor is yours, Darlene.
Thank you. No, Livinus and his wife had a baby early this morning, so
Hey.
he's not able to be here tonight. So, yeah. Okay, so accessibility plan. I'll just go through a little background before we get into it. So the Nova Scotia Accessibility Act came into force in 2017 with the aim of becoming an accessible province by 2030. At that time, the province required municipalities and other entities to develop 3-year accessibility plans to work toward the municipality becoming more accessible by helping to identify, remove, and prevent barriers for people with disabilities. The Accessibility Advisory Committee was created in 2020, and its role is to advise municipal council on identifying, preventing, and eliminating barriers experienced by people with disabilities in municipal programs, services, initiatives, and facilities. A 3-year plan, which was 2022 to 25, was developed in consultation with the committee and with feedback from individual community members, as well as organizations that provide services to people with disabilities. The province has now asked us to update that plan and renew it for the next 3 years. The draft plan you have in front of you outlines our progress on the action items in the original plan and sets out our goals for the next 3 years. It was also developed in consultation with the committee and based on feedback from the community. It's broken up into 5 sections, you'll see, which were established by the province, and those are goods and services, information and communication, transportation, employment, and the built environment. That's it.
So is there any questions, comments from council members? So from my understanding, Darlene, this is just an update on where you stand with the accessibility, correct?
It's the new plan for 2025-28.
So I'm going to ask the CEO, do we move forward? Is there a motion needed to move this forward to regular council for approval, or?
That's correct, yep. So the review is required in legislation. I'm on the right plan, right?
Accessibility.
Yep.
Accessibility,
So
yeah.
the review was required in legislation, and so if committee of the whole is satisfied with it, then a recommendation to council.
Councillor Daniel Muse.
I make a motion that we move this to regular council for the approval of the draft copy of the 2025 to 2028 as presented.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Second. Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. Any discussion on that? I'll just make a quick comment. I'm glad to see the work that's already been completed, because you have it in here of things like the hiring of Liverness. And once again, congratulations to him and his wife for the birth of their baby. And I see also in here the ongoing work and also the pending work. And I do know that that is a very busy committee. I attended one here not that long ago. And the build environment top priorities, making sure that if any new municipal buildings, that they adhere to the new standards, which we're also doing modifications to our older buildings as well. So I'm very glad to see that moving forward. That's about the only comments I have about this. And Councillor Phil Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Darlene, on page 4 in the document presented on goods and services, top priorities for 2025 to 2028. Number 7, can somebody refresh my memory on all the municipal trails, either yourself or the CAO?
MCO?
So as far as trails are concerned, we have one in Rockville. We support, and we have Tickpock in Arcadia as well, so the 2, yep, adjacent to the school. We support other trail-type assets, but they're not owned, municipally owned. I think it's just the 2.
Isn't the one up by the business park that goes down and connects the rails to trails, is that municipally owned?
It is. I don't know that it might be more like a cart path than an official trail.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any more discussion, questions, comments? If not, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.2, in addition, Bell Fiber Op, Councillor Phil Mooney, you had asked to have this added to the agenda, so I'll open up your mic as soon as you turn it on. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know a couple of people around the table have got a phone call about a situation in Councillor Baxter's area when it came to a fiber op mishap, and it had nothing to do with the Bell system itself. It had to do with another independent contractor might have hit a pole or hit a wire. What is Bell contracted to do under, and it took several days to get it done, and I think that the lack of capacity for Bell was one of the reasons, but under the contract that we have with the internet, what services does Bell provide us, or what are they contracted to do, either through us or through the province?
Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when the municipality made its contributions to the Rural High-Speed Internet Initiative, there were no vendors that made service level commitments to the municipality. My understanding is that through the Nova Scotia Internet Trust, when the procurement was done to identify the internet service providers, there were performance standards that were in that contract that related to learnings from the previous round of internet around overall support for the network, software updates. I'm not sure that the agreements are that granular, that if somebody has a service interruption for 15 days, that the internet service provider is beholden because of the public money that was included in the project to provide any credits to customers. I think that that's probably more of a standard policy that each private company would offer to subscribers, and subscribers would either choose to purchase the service or not. I do recognize, as Councillor Mooney said, there have been a handful of residents that I'm aware of in southwest Nova Scotia, not just Yarmouth County, who've, because of trees falling and whatnot through the stormy, windy weather, their interruptions have gone on for days, sometimes weeks. I think I even know of one case where it was over a month. And they've struggled, but they've worked with their vendor independently to feel like they've been made whole on that issue.
Councillor Jim Baxter.
Yeah, just for a little clarity on this one, this was a specific issue to a line being down, and the line being down across the individual's property. Yeah, it wasn't a loss of service, it was a line down.
Yeah, again, so the municipality doesn't own any of the infrastructure or control any of the infrastructure, and I'm really not sure of the particulars of the contract between the provincial government and the internet service providers, but it's my understanding that the internet service providers own their own distribution networks. Yep.
Yeah, and I also do know that there has been an issue with the service providers' equipment to fix the lines. I do know that they had some equipment down, unfortunately, during at least one instance that I know of, because I receive a call every once in a while saying my service is down. Who do I get a hold of? Well, actually, as the CEO mentioned, it's the service provider. But that is a good question in regards to what Councillor Phil Mooney asked, was there any service requirement after the fact that the provider had to sign or anything like that, and that would actually be under the province jurisdiction? I think that might be a good question for the MLA. Councillor Mooney?
I had a conversation with the MLA today, and I think we're going to be meeting with him in the next couple of weeks, so if we just put that on the radar to ask him, we should be good.
Yeah, okay.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mooney. All right, moving on to item number 10, new business.
John.
I am sorry, Councillor. You have the floor. Your mic was on, and I didn't know.
Well, I shut it off and then it come back on again, right? So,
Okay. You have the floor, Councillor Christian.
thank you, Mr. Warden. Well, continue on with the Bell Fiber internet stuff, right? There are, in actually, my property is one of them, has a long service line from the pole to the house. And eventually, that's gonna come down because of the wind and whatnot, right? So, I'm a little concerned about that kind of stuff. But one of my main concerns is, up on the Pembroke Road, in Pembroke, there's, how can I say this? The fiber up goes up on the Israel Allen Road and around, and comes back on the Pembroke Road to Cranberry Hill, but there's a section in there, there's no fiber. Instead of, they could have connected that very easily. How do we look into that, or what do we do? Is there anything we can do?
Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the process that we've been using through the project is providing residents with a telephone number and an email address that they can contact Build Nova Scotia directly, provide them with their civic address, and Build Nova Scotia can let them know if there's any scope expansion that's possible, or if something got missed, or if it's still not done. So if you wanted to provide me with that information, Councillor Cushing, I can
Sure.
make sure that you're supported in responding.
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, any more on that? Triple check this time. Moving on to item number 10, 10.1, the draft equity and anti-racism plan. Deputy CEO Darlene LeBlanc, your mic is still on.
Thank you. Again, I'll give a little bit of background on this one. In 2022, the province of Nova Scotia passed the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act. The legislation outlines the provincial government's approach to addressing systemic hate, inequity, and racism. Recognizing the important role municipalities play in addressing racism, hate, and inequity, the Equity and Anti-Racism Strategy identified municipalities as the first public sector bodies required to develop equity and anti-racism plans. It requires municipalities to undergo a process to identify actions that will promote equity and anti-racism by considering the needs of underrepresented and underserved communities. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee was created in 2023 and is made up of councillors, citizen representatives, and staff. And we do have a citizen representative with us tonight. Its purpose is to advise and assist municipal council in promoting and celebrating our diverse community through the review of municipal policies, programs, and services, resulting in recommendations which will encourage full participation by diverse communities in Modi. The plan was developed in consultation with the advisory committee and is based on what we heard from the community engagement that was undertaken. This plan includes concrete actions to eliminate biases, promote diversity, and ensure Modi policies, practices, and interactions are aligned with its commitments and with provincial guidelines through the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism. This is the beginning, just the beginning of a journey. It's understood that this work is ongoing and will require sustained commitment. Through intentional actions, ongoing education, and a commitment to accountability, Modi will ensure policies, practices, and behaviors reflect these values. And the next step in this process would be creating a more detailed work plan that has timelines attached to it. And one other note, in the final version of the plan, we're going to include council's mission, vision, and values in there as well, that page.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Jim Baxter.
Just discussion point. As Darlene had mentioned, Jude Fulton is in attendance. She's one of the citizen reps on the committee, and I wanted to make sure she got introduced here. As well, another discussion point that we had moving forward, the plan came together fairly quickly. And there's one piece that we want to ensure is included in the draft. We talked about youth, but we did not include elderly in the initial draft. So as we move forward and rework the draft a little bit, we're going to ensure that seniors are also included as on the equity side of it. And that's more around the area of communication, and there were a few bullet points that we wanted to make sure that seniors were included in the plan on.
Yep. MCO?
Yeah, so the important thing to remember when a plan like this is developed and adopted by council, it's meant to be a living document. It's meant to be exercised, it's meant to be massaged and amended, and that's a key role for the advisory committee, is to take a look at maybe some things that got missed and recommend amendments to the plan along the way. If council chooses to amend this plan, and it's a 3-year plan, doesn't mean that there might not be amendments along the way.
Yeah, one thing also I should mention, if council remembers, at the last regular council meeting, we nominated Wanda Dowsett the night before that meeting held, and she was there, and actually, I was really impressed that she read through the document, and she had some concerns. And I do believe that it was mentioned to her that this is a living document. It isn't perfect, but the advisory committee is very active, that's for sure. I had the pleasure, unfortunately, I couldn't attend in person because I was to another meeting, and I just made it on time. I think it's a good start, and that's the whole point. This is a start. Is there going to be changes? I expect there will be, because with the input of the, number one, the committee, and number two, the different groups around the municipality, whether the youth, the underserved groups, I'm really looking forward to hearing them. I also appreciate Monty chairing the meeting. She does a very good job at doing that. There was a lot of input, actually very active members about individuals taking different notes and stuff like that, and then it all come together quite quickly. And with the help of staff, thank you very much, Darlene, because I know there was a lot of things thrown at that meeting, but at the end of the day, I think this is a very good start, and I certainly appreciate it, and looking forward to council's moving this forward to regular council to accept this. Councillor Jim Baxter.
Yeah, I just wanted to also include that we had some very, very engaging meetings that we had some really good discussion on. That being said, I would like to make a motion to recommend to move this to council, the draft plan as written.
Yep. Okay, a motion on the floor? Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. Any discussion on that, or any more discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. That was a lot of work in a short amount of time. And also, one thing I also want to mention is they've had also discussion about regularly interval meetings, because there was a lot of meetings in a hurry. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Gary. Tell June thank you.
Heckle people out the door, that's terrible.
Greg and Angelique and Danny are just going to be about 5 minutes to come in and get set up. So maybe we could go on to 10.3, and 10.4, and 10.5, and Greg getting set up.
Yeah, when they come. Councillor, the next item 10.2, the draft capital investment plan by Greg, Angelique, and Danny, they're still setting up. I need to run to the washroom, so I'd entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess. If so, moved by Councillor Phil Mooney, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion to take a 5-minute recess. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, everyone, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. Item number 10.2, the draft 2025-2026 capital investment plan. We've with us today Angelique LeBlanc, Greg Shea, and Danny Jackson from our municipal staff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys. The microphone is on. When you're ready, fire away. No, you turned it off.
How's it
It's
on?
on now.
All right. Thank you, Warden and Council. Yes, I do have with me this evening Angelique LeBlanc. She is your incoming Chief Financial Officer, and she'll be taking my place in the coming months. And then we have Danny Jackson, who is our Director of Asset Management and Capital Projects. So Danny's here just to support on the technical side in case we get any discussions that require some technical answers. So tonight, we're just going to deliver to you what we have for now is a draft capital investment plan. This is a culmination of meetings and work with staff and council workshops as well. So I'll just run through the list that we have planned for this year for 25-26. We'll just do the 1 year where this is the year that we're interested in, because where we're working on 25-26 capital and operating plans. So in front of you is the just a format we've typically used in the past. There's multiple columns on this because we use this for a number of other funds that we keep a track of as well and manage. But for tonight's purposes, we're concerned with the columns that are listed as capital reserve funds and gas tax funds. Gas tax funds is actually a little bit out of date now. They've changed that name. You might be more familiar with CCBF, the Canada Communities Building Fund, but it is it's the successor to the old gas tax funds. And these two reserves are our main primary sources of funding our capital projects. Not the only ones, but they're the primary ones. So to start the plan this year, we've arrived at these following projects that we'd like to get approved and execute, or at least begin. Some of them are multi-year, so just before I start, you'll see a letter that's in one column, a P or a D. The P means procure, and the D means design. So in some cases, it's straight procurement. In some cases, there needs to be design, and some years we're able to do design and procure and all in 1 year, but it depends on the size and magnitude of the product. Sometimes sometimes they might straddle multiple years. So this plan also includes new asks, new builds, new acquisitions, and some carry forwards from ongoing projects. So, and right off the top, we have the Rotary Center accessibility, modernization, and upgrades. You know that is a project that we started in 24-25. So to complete that out in 25-26, we're looking at around $127,000 to finish it off. While we're doing that, we're going to renew the roof on the Rotary building. We have a budget number there of $30,000 for that. And then also the admin building, that is the accessibility retrofits and upgrades too that we're living through right now. And to complete that project, we're estimated to come in around $818,000, and that will be complete in 25-26. Again, along the lines of the outfitting and upfitting and upgrading of this building, we have IT upgrades for the council chambers at $93,000. I'm just rounding these to the nearest $1,000. And we have furniture, fixtures, and equipment to outfit the chamber at $27,000. The Hebron-Dayton sewer system, where you know that we've been working on that for a while to do I&I work and modernize the infrastructure there. And solve some long-standing maintenance issues. We do not have any hard numbers on this yet, but we're still working on some possible infrastructure upgrades that might be required along the Greenfield section of that piece. So we are allowing an amount of $400,000 there, but the final numbers on that have yet to be determined. Port Maitland Sewer Treatment Plant, we plan on doing envelope work on that entire building, as well as doing some renewal work on the UV Aware and some other sewer-related equipment that's in that building. The quotations and budget for that are $27,000. Or sorry, $65,000. Some more sewer-related items that we have on the books for this year are the LS1 Milo station. We need a backup genset for that, $30,000. LS2 in Hebron, another backup genset for that, $30,000. We're looking to set up a 3/4-ton wastewater vehicle that is specifically outfitted to meet the needs of Public Works when they're serving the sewer water systems and the wastewater systems around the municipality. So we budgeted $100,000 for that vehicle. LED streetlights is not a really significant one, but it is a capital item, and we do replace a few every year, so we do put a little number in there for that to just give us the room to work with in case we need to. I have $10,000 in there for that for this year. The Mariner Center is an asset that is only directly owned by us, as we all well know, and it's undergoing a major project there now with the Aquatic Center and the Fitness Center, and we're continue to make contributions to our commitment on that. What we've been doing there in the past few years is setting aside funds into a special bank account. Essentially, it's still capital reserve fund, but it's set aside in a special bank fund, so you just see the commitment being transferred, so we make sure it's available for the project when it's called upon. And so we're going to make another $1 million commitment to that for 25, 26. And that will be getting very close to what our commitment is as per the agreements. Public Works has identified a tractor that needs to be replaced, $75,000. Cape for Shoe, we've done a strat plan on that, as you know, 2 or 3 years ago. It's a multi-year plan, and there's several stages in it, several phases. In 25, 26, there's quite a big project to do around the parking lot and prepping the site for more parking and for prepping the site to allow for new buildings to accommodate visitors. That's going to straddle multiple years. This year, what we want to do is invest $109,000 in the engineering and design and the soft work before we do any actual builds. The total project budget is $436, and we expect to do about $109 of that this year on the engineering and design. Again, at Cape for Shoe, a smaller item, but we have a need for a utility vehicle that can move mobility challenged people around the property. We had an old golf cart there in the past that's not particularly appropriate or safe, so we want to invest in a newer, more safer golf cart style vehicle, but one that is specifically made to safely carry people with mobility challenges. So we've allowed $15,000 for that. The Nova West Business Park, very pleased to see that going on. That's a project that's been on my want-to-do list for several years, so we're going to extend the business park and create some more lots in there to develop and hopefully populate it with commercial industrial business. So that one is finally on the books and out to tender, and the budget for that phase was $3.5 million. And then Leisure Services has identified some assets at the rec park specifically that need work and need replacement and refurbishment. The tennis court, which hasn't been touched in a long time, we're providing for $50,000 for that work. The Rotary Center parking lot to go along and complement the work that's being done now to enhance accessibility and make it more fully accessible in the parking lot proper, as opposed to just the 2 lots in front of the building. We're proposing to do some paving there on the upper parking lot this year. We're allowed $100,000 for that. We need to do some work at 62 Arcom, which is a valuable rental property for us. It needs work on HVAC units that are coming to end of life. We have 40 in there, but I'll caution you right now, we still are waiting to hear from the market about what the real market prices are for HVAC units. So that one is, I'm going to put a red flag around that one and watch for that. We earmarked something, but I'm suspicious that is not sufficient. And then we're getting close to the end. The Leisure Services also has a half-ton that it uses to service grounds and provide services. That needs to be replaced. We put $75,000 for that. There was a desire by council to investigate the prospect of paving the Modi-owned roads. So we're going to probably looking at doing some preliminary design work and engineering work on that this year. We've put a number there of $325,000. We hope that will be enough. Another item on here, this is a note, there was also some discussion about potable water infrastructure at Tower Road. This one is, we're going to move this to, just so you're aware and you understand that we haven't lost sight of this interest. We are not going to put this on capital budget for now. What we're going to do right now is slot a number in there in our operating budget in our engineering line and transportation sector, the transportation department, and we'll use that money to do some preliminary engineering and exploratory work on the feasibility, the viability, the likelihood of that being able to become a real project. So just so you know, it's not in the capital investment plan, but there will be some monies for professional services spent in our operating budget this year on the transportation department. And that's it. So that totals those 2 columns, capital reserves and the gas tax fund, and you don't need to be too concerned about the split up, but primarily it's split up because some of the projects qualify for these gas tax funds, and that's why we track them under that column. But in total, then we're looking at a capital investment plan this year of $7,023,525. So unless there's questions, that's your capital investment plan for the year.
I do have one question, and I'm going to go down to this, the last one, Modi-owned roads and paving. That's not actually for paving, that's just for the engineering work, correct?
Correct. That is what we've estimated it might a number might be appropriate or in the ballpark to cover the engineering and design work.
Councillor Phil Mooney.
Thank you, Greg, and Angelique, and Danny. Very impressive list of projects that you've undertaken, or we've undertaken, or the municipality's undertaken over the last year, because it's in the works long before some of us around the table have been elected. But the question you hear around, and you look at what was going on TV today in tariffs, is how much do you think any of these things, Greg, are going to be affected? You talked about the HVAC stuff and some of the things that might have to come across the border. Is there any thought or any process in place that we stick with Canadian vendors? I know in the fire department in Pleasant Valley, their new pump for their truck has been stuck in Indiana. And the vendor there is going to, from what I understand, is going to eat the tariff cost, but they still won't ship the component until they figure out what the tariff is, because they still haven't got a number. So some of these numbers could fluctuate, right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, we're all watching the news every day. Nobody knows where it's going to lead to or what the next, tariff flavor of the day is going to be going forward. We really do not know what to expect from this. There are some Canadian content, and we try to do Canadian content obviously as much as we can, and probably be a little more conscious about that going forward. But having said that, I mean, a lot of the soft costs obviously will be Canadian, the engineering and design things in some of these projects. That's a little bit easier to say it's going to be Canadian content, but really for supply, we don't ever really, it's hard for us to know in the supply chain where the end product is coming from. HVAC is one of the prime examples of why we don't have an answer from the market yet. They're really struggling with their suppliers to get a number for the units that we're looking for the rooftop on 62 Arcon.
And the thing that I'm surprised...
We are vulnerable there for sure.
Yeah, and the thing I'm surprised about is the vast difference in the list from anything from resurfacing a tennis court to backup generators to the Hebron Dayton sewer, is the capacity that we have as a municipality to get this stuff out the door, and that's where Mr. Jackson is a valuable...
Well, we have the financial capacity, or we wouldn't be recommending this, but it does become a supply chain and procurement issue with the state of affairs we have right now worldwide with tariffs and then the international supply chains.
Yeah.
Some stuff is Canadian content.
Yeah.
Paving is another example of, it's obviously going to probably be a Canadian outfit that does the paving. But when it comes to hard equipment and materials that are built and constructed, like HVAC units, pump systems for sewer systems. I think we've been lucky so far with Council IT and FFE. I think a lot of that is Canadian sourced. I'm not sure, but it's going to be a challenge for sure.
It's an impressive list. Good job to everybody involved.
Councillor Jim Baxter.
Thank you, Warden, and thank you three for coming to present to us. Couple observations. Number one, I'm very happy to see the numbers here, and that almost to the dollar, half of our investment is going to the Nova West Business Park development, which is super. Our last presentation on assessments brought to light that we have to draw more commercial activity into the municipality. So.
That's great for me. I agree with you. I mean, I think there is demand for commercial space. We've seen that over the years, and we haven't been able to deliver because typically the private sector can't wait for us to get development done, and we need to have that before they will come. I think there's already been inquiries about space, but nothing that we would go to the bank with, of course, but it demonstrates anecdotally that there's certainly interest there, and it's long overdue to have some more developed commercial space in the municipality.
So. Thank you, three.
Councillor Muse.
Our last meeting, a letter was presented to council about the Mariner Center Arena 1 needing to be redone at a cost of $2 million. I know we support it in principle, and I'm not sure if this is where we are supposed to add this into the budget, or if it goes under capital, if it goes under operations, but our share of 2 million, I don't see that, and we want to do this project next year in 2026, because we are owners, and if this fails us, we're really not in a good place.
Yeah.
So I didn't notice it in here.
No, there's been no conversation yet about where we plot that and how well, certainly, I think council certainly needs to have a healthy debate on that and
Yeah.
make some decisions.
Yeah.
And then we'll receive instructions on how to go forward with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Angelique, Greg, Danny, staff, thank you very much for this. We've always had lots of discussions with it, and for the most part, I'm very pleased to see all but one of the projects that we're moving forward. But as Dad once told me, are you going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Well, we have the whole bathwater, the big plan. There's one thing that I'm going to mention. I'm a little uncomfortable with the Modi-owned roads. That's always been something that I've been concerned about, because it affects a very small area. And we've talked and we've wrangled through different councils that I've sat on, and I've been quite consistent on my concerns over it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about passing this full plan. And I certainly like the full plan as it stands. There's always going to be something in there that, whether it be I or another councillor doesn't quite agree with, but at the end of the day, we did all discuss these, each one of these projects through, and it is what it is, and I'm very happy to see that, and I know it takes a lot of work from council and staff to put something like this together. There's a lot of things that are going on, and one thing that I'm very happy to see, as you had mentioned, Greg, is the Nova West Business Park. That's something that was pointed out, as Councillor Jim Baxter had mentioned in our PVSC, and something that I mentioned to PVSC when they were here giving their presentation, that we need areas for businesses to grow in the municipality, and that's one thing that I think that's a diamond in the rough, so to speak, that we really need to help incubate different businesses here. Now, what that's going to be like down the road, but at least it's going to be there and ready for businesses to grow, whatever type that may be. So I'm very happy with the plan as presented.
Motion,
Councillor?
Mr. Chair, to
Yes, we're going to need a
move the
motion to
regular.
move this
coun- oh,
regular.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the list of capital projects for 25, 26 be passed on to the next regular council meeting. And if
For
there's
approval.
any, if it's secondary, and if there's any discussion, I'd like to say another word.
Okay, motion on the floor to move this to regular council for approval. Seconder?
I think Councillor Cushing over there.
Okay, Councillor Lauren Cushion.
And maybe, I think I see the CAO's light on, and she's probably going to address the same situation about Councillor Muse, about the concerns about where the money is I think the last, the motion that we made gives you some latitude, or council some latitude, on where that money comes from, or how we're going to do it in discussion with other councils.
Right,
Yeah.
that, and if things were more solid, it would appear on the 26-27 schedule, not the 25-26 schedule, because construction will be in that next fiscal year. But what I was going to say, Mr. Warden, is the municipality is required to approve a 5-year capital investment plan. So ideally, even though we didn't review the subsequent years, they have been presented to council and they're in the package. The ideal motion would be to approve the 5-year capital investment plan.
Okay,
I'll
so,
do-
so you're willing to make that
I'll make
friendly
that
amendment?
change.
Is that okay with the seconder? Okay. Do you
And there's
have that-
nothing
that
on the
part?
other side there, Greg, everything is, there's nothing that we've,
It is really a moving 5-year plan. We have to file one every year with the province, and it rolls every year. I think
Okay.
I think you've seen the numbers before in a workshop. Obviously, what's important is this year, but it would be nice to have that buttoned down too, so that when we submit to the province, we do know that we have we do need council's approval for
Good.
that file.
just to say it again, really good job, everybody.
Madam CEO?
And just an additional point of clarification around the ice replacement at the Mariner Center. Once things solidify throughout the coming fiscal year, this plan can get amended and updated so that we slot it in and show it once we have a landing spot to land on. And in fact, we did that last year. There were some adjustments to the capital investment plan when new information became available.
Yeah, that's right, I remember that now. Yeah, we ended up amending it. Okay, is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
So, Mr. Chair, if I just could
Yeah, go
say
ahead.
something. So, thank you for the vote of confidence in the team and trying to distill what we hear from council into a workable plan. I do want to point out that this is Greg Shea's final capital investment plan presentation to council, and want to thank him for his service and his leadership in moving the municipality forward in this way.
Well, thank you, everyone, and CAO for the kind words. I appreciate it, and you'll certainly be in much better hands going forward with Angelique and with Danny as muscle. All right?
I remember that comment somewhere, but I also remember, unfortunately, I've been here longer than you have. I remember when we brought you on, and you haven't changed any. Not a bit.
All right. We should discontinue this conversation.
I could go a little bit farther, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Greg, for your service to the municipality and the residents. And Angelique, we're looking forward to working forward with you, and Danny, as always.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, guys. Moving on, item 10.3, the draft access to information policy, A-033-21. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before committee of the whole this evening is a recommendation to add a definition in 2.1 of third party and bring in clarification for how third party information would be handled under Part 6. And that's just to tighten up the policy. We had a couple questions around some information pieces and what the municipality does with third party information. So I'll just clarify what that means. So if a person requests a document from the municipality and there's information in the document that is not necessarily the municipality's information, there's a process under the Act about ensuring that before the municipality releases that information, that their rights are respected and the process is followed. So we had a couple questions about it, so our recommendation is that we just tighten up the policy and clarify it.
Any discussion on that? So is someone willing to make a motion to move this to regular council for the repeal of tax? Okay, moved by Councillor Phil Mooney, seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 10.4, the draft audit committee policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a short while ago, council approved updated terms of reference for the audit committee. So this is just a piece of follow-on work to make sure there's continuity between the policy and the terms of reference. So in 3.1, there's provision for up to 3 citizen reps. There's a connection between the policy and the audit committee terms of reference. And the terms of reference no longer stipulate that the chair of the audit committee must be a member of council, so that's being updated. And in 4.3.1, we're just clarifying that the reference to a year is the fiscal year.
So is anyone willing to make a recommendation to regular council, the approval? Councillor Jim Baxter?
Second.
Done. I'll make a motion
Moved by Councillor
to,
Phil Mooney, seconded by Councillor Jim Baxter. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now I know why I can't see Councillor Cushing. There we go. I'm trying to block you out of my line of sight, although my sight is very poor. Item 10.5, repeal a tax policy, 082-01. Madam CEO?
Mr. Chair, last year, council modernized the tax collection policy, which brought in the provisions under the Municipal Government Act for collecting taxes that are in arrears and administering the tax sale procedure. And so this policy is now redundant. And so the recommendation is that a motion be made to recommend to council to repeal tax sale policy T-082-01.
What is council's pleasure? Councilor Baxter.
I'll make a motion to repeal tax sale policy T-052-01.
That's a recommendation. right,
Recommendation to council, yes.
Okay, just making sure. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Lauren Cushing. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 10.6, the provincial deed transfer tax. Councilor Phil Mooney.
Ooh, Mr. Chair, maybe just a question or clarification from the CAO. I know myself and the warden had this discussion earlier this week or late last week about the provincial deed transfer tax. And we're at 1.5%, right, for us?
Yes.
And a non-resident comes in and there's a long list of exemptions for family members and some other things for the non-resident, but the one that they're increasing is the one that's collected by the province.
Correct. That's right. There's no amendment to the municipal deed transfer tax.
Okay, so do we get any component or any municipality that collects that deed transfer tax, do we get any of that back, or that's?
So the municipalities don't administer the provincial deed transfer tax. So the municipalities never touch the money. They're not part of the process. It's a transaction between those involved in the purchase sale of the real estate and the province. So what ends up happening is most money for real estate deals goes to a lawyer held in trust and dispersed accordingly. So on the purchase of a property in the municipality of Yarmouth, there would be, if the person is from California, let's say, there would be 2 deed transfer tax. One would be remitted to the municipality by those holding the money in trust, and one would be remitted to the province by those holding the money in trust. So no municipality receives any of the provincial deed transfer tax. Benefit might accrue, because I think it goes into general revenue, so benefit might accrue to Nova Scotia residents at the municipal level through programs that the province might roll out, but there's no direct correlation.
And it's going from 10 to 15%?
5 to 10.
5 to 10%,
I think,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted the
Yep.
clarification because a resident thought that and Mr. Baxter knows how in favor I am of the deed transfer tax. But I had a resident just ask, they thought that the deed transfer tax was going from 5 to 10% and we were going to be benefiting
Right. Yeah,
an
no.
extra 8.5%, so okay. That's-
No new
it's-
revenue streams for municipalities that I know of this year.
Okay, good. Okay, it was for information only, thank you.
Thank you very
CEO, and
much.
thank you, Mr. Warden, for that.
Absolutely. Item 10.7, request for decision on Barb's Bench.
So, Mr. Chair, the recommendation from the Community and Economic Development Officer is in Council's package for the Committee of the Whole agenda. I guess what I would say is this is kind of a unique opportunity for Council to consider doing a marquee placemaking project. And I know how concerned Council is with public safety and certainly making sure that municipal assets represent the things that matter to residents. So the recommendation is in the package, and it's that the municipality, the District of Yarmouth, procure and install 2 Barb's benches for a total cost of $4,000 plus non-refundable HST. One's recommended at Cape Forshoe and one somewhere near the admin building, and that it be a marquee placemaking project for council under the grants program for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Councilor Daniel Muse.
I would like to make that a motion, what Madam CEO just said. I'm not going to repeat all that, but that's what I'd like to make a motion. And also, I would like to add funds of $750 to go towards the June 4th ceremonies that will be taking place. And the funds for that is for like sandwiches and decorations and that kind of things. And we all know that you don't get a lot for $750. That's us, but that's our portion. So I would like to add that into the recommendations, into the motion as well.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Second. Seconded by Councillor Phil Mooney. Councillor Muse, you still have the floor. I do think that's a great idea. To have some, whether it's finger foods or anything like that, to make it a marquee event for the municipality. I think that's an excellent idea, actually. You have the floor still.
You know, this has hit Yarmouth in general just not too long ago. And I believe that there's, if my numbers are correct, there's been 7 in the province in the last 6 to 8 months. So this is a really good program for us to get involved in, especially when it hits so close to home. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the recommendation from the CAO in regards to placement at the Cape Purchou light station, there's a lot of beautiful places where that bench could be sat, and a lot of people can sit in it and use it and reflect. I was talking to a local resident who happened to be a reporter for the region, and she mentioned about how much she loved going out there and just sitting and reflecting. And so that's a great spot for that, just to sit and be quiet, because it's busy a lot of the times, but a lot of the times there's nobody there, and that would be a perfect spot for well, yeah, you can hear him coming from the horse and in Milton. No, not quite that far. He's a little quieter than he used to be over the years. All right, is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Just go grab the sheet.
All right.
I don't think there's any, because there's nobody here, but.
Next item is public comments. The CAO's going to get the sheet, see if there's anybody there. There's nobody asking to make any comments to council. The next item on the agenda is item number 12, in camera. We have 2 in camera. I need a motion to go into camera.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Jim Baxter, seconded by Councillor Daniel Muse. All those in favor to go into camera signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.